Good morning from the forge. Well, it's June. It's already hot. It's early morning, but it's already hot. It's only going to get hotter. And I have no idea what we're going to hammer out today. It's going to be some kind of a blade. Kind of short on inspiration this morning. Don't know what we're going to do. But we'll build a fire up there and smack it a few times and see what happens. Thanks for being here. Be sure and hit that like button. Be sure and subscribe for future content. Be sure and leave a comment in the comment section. It's all greatly appreciated. Let's get to it before it gets any hotter. All right, since I'm going to be starting with some 1/4 inch thick stock, we'll get out the big hammer. I'm going to start off by drawing down a point, as always. And it's not really as hot as it looks on the camera. So it's going to take a few heats to get that steel warmed up to where I need it. Draw that point back a little more. Working the angle down and then working the thickness to keep the thickness uniform. Until I get that point where I want it. I want that thickness uniform, and then I'll draw it out from there. There we go. That's starting to look a little better. Now, unlike the way I usually do this, I'm going to work this knife from the tip back toward the hilt. Usually I work it the other way. So I'm going to start at the tip and start forging in the bevels and work my way back. Which is completely backward from the way I usually work, but we're going to do it and make it turn out fine. I'm hammering in the bevels, and you can see how that's spreading the metal, making it wider as the edge bevels come down and thin out. I'm just working backwards, lengthwise, hammer width, half hammer width at a time. No need to be in a hurry. You can see how that blade's starting to take shape pretty well. Now I can draw that blade backwards as long as I want to. Now eventually, hammering those bevels in is going to cause the blade to really get a pronounced curve in it if I go too far without correcting it. So I'm actually kind of correcting that curve as I go. And I could draw this out to as long a blade as I want. And you can see how that blade's starting to curve upward. Yeah, we're going to correct that a little bit in a minute. As soon as I get the length close to where I want it. I want a blade between 8 and 9 inches, I think. I have a Bowie build coming up for a client, and I want to play with this blade a little bit just to see if this is the blade shape I want to use on his blade later. And I'm actually liking the way this is turning out so far. Make sure everything's nice and straight. Wasn't quite long enough. We'll draw out just a little more. You can see how that's starting to curve up. I don't want that. But we'll correct it. Now I'm hammering in where where my bevels are going to start at the heel of the blade. That blade is long enough now. Just make sure everything's centered up. It's looking pretty good. Now you can see what I'm doing there. And that's just taking some of that curve out of the blade, straightening the blade back up. Quite satisfied with that. Now I'm going to mark where the first finger well is going to be at the beginning of the handle. And we'll start forging that in over the horn. Just going to keep working it there till I get what looks right. You learn to do a lot of things by what looks right as you go along making your knives. Need to be a little bit deeper. And we'll start doing a little of the basic shaping on the handle. Not bad. Yep, I'm liking that quite a bit. But I'm at the point now where I really need to cut that handle off so I can finish forging it. So we'll get out the hardy cutter. And the first thing I'm going to do is just mark where I want to cut it. And of course I've got to throw my hammer on the floor. Now we'll warm the steel back up and we'll finish making our cut this time. There we go. And get back to work forging the handle. Now at this point that handle's a little short, but it's going to stretch out, it's going to lengthen. Blade this big, I want the handle to be at least 4.5 inches long. Maybe a little more. Going to use the horn of the anvil to do some of the shaping. And there I'm using the corner of the anvil to draw the steel out and lengthen it. I'm really liking that. I think that's turning out pretty good. Now we're just going to work on taking out any bends that are in it, straighten everything up, knock the scale off. It's actually, the handle's pretty straight. One more time, just make sure everything is straight and square. Bring that edge back to the center there just a little bit. Yep, that'll do. Let's get a little closer. Yep, I'm pleased with that. Okay, folks, we got that one finished up. Took it up there, cleaned the profile up, cleaned the edge up a little bit, gone back in the forge. We've got it hardened. It's ready to go in the temper. It's going to be a 7-hour process, so we're not going to fool with that. But I do want to show you one thing. You can look at the handle. It does have a few divots, a few marks in it, and you can see that it's shiny. Now, even if I were doing a stock removal blade with a dead flat handle that I didn't have to do any grinding on, I always leave 36 grit. I use a 36 grit sand belt on the handle and leave the scratches in. And you can see that this has divots around the edges, and I don't worry about that. That's just a place for the epoxy to set in and get a good bond, and that's why I leave those 36 grit scratches, even on dead flat steel. It gives the epoxy a good place to set in and catch and make a good bond. But anyway, there we go. Blade's probably roughly 8 inches. Nice handle. It's going to make somebody a good blade, and I do believe that that's exactly the blade shape I'm going to try to go with on the Bowie for the customer. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. If you're still here, thanks for bearing with me. God bless and have a great day.